Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Oxnard City Council Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committees. Our meeting is scheduled from 6:45 to 8:15. And Madam Clerk, if we could have a roll call and posting of the agenda information, please.
Yes, agenda was posted. Mayor Zaragoza,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Here.
thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor, if you'd lead us in the flag salute since you have a flag.
Honor, please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And you want a moment of silence, Mayor Pro Tem?
No, we can go ahead and move into the meeting. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to what would be the public comments on items not on the agenda. I've been informed by the clerk that we do not have any public speaker requests. And we don't have a consent agenda at this time. So that will take us to item D1, Community Development Department, Fourth Amendment to Agreement number 7690-16-D, as in David, S as in Sam, with Rincon Consultants for on-call planning and permit processing. And Mr. Bengili, is this you or someone else going to do this?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, this is Jeff Bengili, Interim Community Development Director. Kathleen Mallory and Scott Kolwitz are on the line.
Okay. How come your beard is all one color? Mine is like 4 different colors, but that's okay. Go ahead. It's your show.
But Chair McDonald, consistent with Measure M, we do not have a presentation. So at this time, we would look to the chair and the committee member to see if there's any questions that staff needs to address.
Okay. I don't have any particular questions. It's pretty straightforward to me. Mayor, do you have any questions?
I believe that Rincon as a consultant has been on call planning for quite a while. And after listening to the presentation and also reading the report, I think that Rincon Consultants is a highly qualified consulting company.
So would that be a motion to approve and move to council?
So move.
And I'll second it. Madam Clerk, the roll call, please.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
thank you. Motion passes 2-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item 2, the City Manager Department Committee scoping of Council's 2021-2025 5-year priorities. And I have looked at the presentation. And Mayor, I don't know if you have any comments. I've got some comments, but I'll start with you.
Thank you. You know, we just finished with the Finance and Governance Committee, and we had some recommendations for our city manager and also for the public. And we started off at the time sharing some information that I'm sure Alex is going to share. And this is looking at our revenues, you know, for the city. You know, they're much greater, highly significant by 12.5% more so than we anticipated. And also that we have some governmental revenues that are really going to help us meet some of those obligations that we're looking for sustainability. And of course, you know, we're looking at additional funding, you know, from the state and also from the county, and other amendments to the mid-year budget that'll help us with some of the priorities that we're looking for. And we gave some input to the city manager regarding some of the items, for example, in staffing, and also increasing, looking at our FTEs to make sure that we meet our obligations to the public. Also, looking at a training budget, you know, potentially for the city, and looking at staffing to come out at probably the proper positioning of staffing, and also looking at disasters the potential of like earthquakes and fires and other items that we should look forward to, So I think that this committee could probably add more, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, but I'm sure that the city manager has some information that he can share with us.
Sure. And I'll just make a few comments. I like the general approach that he's taken on this in terms of the 5 priorities: organizational effectiveness, quality of life, economic development, public safety, infrastructure, and natural resources. I obviously come from a public safety standpoint, and I would like to see us see if, it talks about maintaining 9/11 response and maintaining staffing on police and fire. I would like to see us really take a look at maybe at some point in time in the future, if we can start improving that staffing level. Um, I know when I first started here back a long time ago, before they had computers, we would see 4 persons on a fire truck or a fire engine rather. And now we've gone down to 3. Well, with OSHA rules, you really need 2 pieces of equipment to be there for the 2 in, 2 out rule for safety for the firefighter. So I would like to see us maybe at some point in time entertain an idea of moving back to a 4-person engine, so that we can be fully in compliance with OSHA when one piece of equipment shows up on an emergency, a fire, when 2 in, 2 out kicks in. Also in the park master plan that we saw last time, there was a discussion about lifeguards. I would like to see us at some point in time look at some sort of lifeguard program. Doesn't have to be the whole beach, but it should be part of the beach, especially during the summer, during the active hours. And I would like us to revisit police staffing. My understanding is that staffing in the patrol bureau at this point in time for each shift in patrol is about 9 or 10 cars per shift. And for a city of 210,000 people, that's not a lot of cars. Response times are slow. People are, and I've had many comments today about response times taking a long time because there just are not that many available officers out there. So, and obviously restoring landscaping services, securing the long-term financial sustainability. I like the way the presentation was set out. I like the goals, and I think we're in a good position at this point to start planning really for the future and really bolstering our community, our services, our presentation to other people driving through, and so on and so forth. So I could probably go on for another hour, but I'll let it go at that. Mr. Nguyen, do you have any comments to add in at this point?
Yes, thank you. Just as a reminder,
Mr. City Manager, can I
Yes,
share something else
yes,
before we
please.
continue? One of the things that I failed to mention too is that I hope that Chief is not looking at storefronts. We had storefronts back, many, many years ago that really helped our neighborhoods because we had patrol officers working the neighborhoods and working with the residents to make sure that they had a good relationship, which I think was extremely important. And I'm sure that maybe Chief might want to look at that again. And additional, Chief, I know you want to share something on that because I think it's important. We also need to, our fire department needs a lot of help too. There is, because of COVID, because of the other, we had quite a few firefighters or we had to replenish a lot of the services there for firefighters. And cleaning up our city and our parks and so forth, that's extremely important. But again, I want to go back to potentially working with the chief, on the storefronts and also training our individuals, our police officers, culture training and other things that will help the police department and more of a diversity. And I know you're working more on the diversity issues and having more women, working in the police department and fire department for that matter. So I just want to share that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would add in that I like the 9 bullet points on the proposed major spending. I agree with those. I think there's a lot of good things in there, especially restoring youth and seniors programs, to really be a whole holistic city and have a full approach to being a better community. So I'm sorry, Mr. Nguyen, I'll be quiet now and let you go
Oh, no,
ahead.
this is great.
Yeah.
It's just that I need to now try to slow you two down a little bit. Because you're getting way ahead in terms of where we are in this process. And by the way, I did, even though Councilmember Madrigal was not able to join us live this evening, I did communicate with him earlier. He will be reviewing this, and I'll get his feedback later this week. So where we are right now is we're only scoping through the lens of this particular committee. Granted, this committee has a lot of subject areas: quality of life, economic development, and public safety. So we'd like to walk through each of those. But we want to stay at the 30,000 foot level for now, just to get the two of you and later Councilmember Madrigal to give us just what the four corners are in terms of the key priority areas. Then we will put that into a community survey so that we bring the public feedback to you back to the full council when we have the special council workshop, where the entire council will discuss all of the areas, not just the ones particular to this committee. And based on what the priorities are, then the staff will, in detail, as we prepare the upcoming budget, we will then say, okay, you have this priority about restoring public safety staffing. Here's what we recommend, here's what it will cost, here's what you get, and here's how long it will take to implement, so that it's a very clear plan year by year of what we can do. So you two have gotten a little further ahead in terms of getting down to very, very specifics, which is fine. We're keeping good notes. So if I can just go through to help frame this conversation, let's start with the quality of life. And there we have restoring youth and senior programs, as well as continue to address homelessness. Is there anything you want to either change or add in those categories?
I think I'm comfortable with them at this point. I think, if you want us to stay at the 30,000 foot level, I'll stay up there. I'm not comfortable that high up, but that's okay. I think, the youth programs are important. The senior programs are important. And I presume you're talking about the nine bullet points on the one slide for the proposed Measure E funding, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No, I'm good. Mayor?
On the youth programs, I think you're starting, what's the name of the program that we're going to be working with the colleges, to train our youth?
Oh, well, no, that's the, so for the youth, it would be the Oxnard Arts Academy, which I'm hoping we can launch within this 5-year period.
With the 5-year program.
Mhm.
And of course, with the seniors also, we're working on helping them with the new building over on Patterson and Fifth Street. And of
Right.
course, then renovate, the other 3 senior centers,
Mhm.
like the Wilson and Colonia and also the South Oxnard Center too, that I think are extremely important for our seniors. And we had a good meeting the other day with just to understand where the seniors are coming from. And potentially that's a good fit, for our seniors.
Mhm.
And also on the youth program, I know that in fact, Councilman Perillo and I were looking at potentially looking at a PLA, for
Mhm.
the city, because they have a good training program, for our youth and our young ladies to work with, and they have a good apprenticeship program
Right.
that can train individuals to be plumbers, electricians, to be carpenters, to be, individuals that can really increase the quality of life, and also for our individuals, and also the wages they can also help, Mr. City Manager, the new companies coming in and the new companies hiring individuals from within, as opposed to bring in employees from
Right.
their, respective companies and so forth.
So that's a perfect segue into the second category, which is economic development. And this is an area where we're recommending a real change in direction. And so let me summarize. given our circumstances in Oxnard, we believe that one of the best things we can do for economic development is to focus the bulk of our resources over the next 5 years, focus on retaining and the many great businesses that are already here in Oxnard, and hopefully encouraging them wherever possible to expand. So we want that to be the primary focus, and one of the key pieces of that, of course, is the Oxnard Employee Pipeline to connect our existing residents to the jobs here in Oxnard. That is a true win-win situation for all of us. We will, of course, continue to attract new business investment wherever possible, and we will continue to partner with the Chamber of Commerce. And the third component is to focus on site-specific redevelopment types of projects where we can rejuvenate, stagnant commercial properties here and there throughout the city. So that's where we want to take that focus for the next 5 years. And we look forward to having a more detailed presentation about these items at the council workshop for the priorities.
Thank you. I like that approach. There's a concept out of Colorado called economic gardening, where they talk about, finding the businesses that are there and successful, in your community and making them more successful. And in turn, their success will create a need for support businesses, their suppliers, more employees and things of that nature. And I've always believed in that theory. And I think that's a good approach that you're putting up there now is let's take the people that are successful now and help them be more successful. And that will create more jobs, more demand for other support. I think it's a win-win all the way around. So I like that.
And also the economic development is extremely important. Going back again to training our employees and getting more educated, that creates not only a succession planning for the families, number one, and number two, it also creates more funding, more revenue for police, for fire, for other services that are required by the city, and also it helps not only in the economic but also in the health of a family, which I think is extremely important. Whether it's mental health, or there's physical health, or there's financial health, and that economic development is so important by training our people for a higher standard of living, which I think is really important.
Right. And on staff, we really believe in that approach as well. And then finally, on public safety, and by the way, you have all of the city's leaders on screen there. So they're available if you should have any particular questions of any of them. We have, you can see them all on screen. So you both have already touched on in detail on public safety. I think the one thing I want to highlight is I really am going to strongly recommend that we circle back and really, really enhance our disaster preparedness program. I talked about this at the prior committee, is we really want to create a modern 21st century model that engages our entire community as broadly as possible, to go beyond CERT or ham radio, but to really work with our communities so that in a major incident, we can actually have our families sustain themselves for as many days as necessary. Most of us who work in City Hall understand that our public safety staff and our public works staff are very ready to respond to a live incident, but it's the aftermath and the recovery that is the challenge. And depending on the nature of the situation, we may or may not have sufficient mutual aid from outside. So it's really important to work, and we have some very good ideas that we will be proposing. But we are all cities are reminded of how important this work is on the front end, because throughout this pandemic, we are all very concerned about another major event happening on top of the pandemic, which would really cripple so many communities. So that's an area we want to focus on. And then on, I think our fire department is in full agreement with regard to the staffing as well as police. The issue of neighborhood storefronts or community-wide storefronts, I will leave that for the police chief. The one area I know we all agree on already is to restore the neighborhood policing program, which is proven to be so effective. And from what I have learned from Chief Benitez, when that program was up and running, the community really, really embraced it. So we wanted to not only restore that, I believe we want to expand it as broadly across the community as we can, because ultimately we all believe that's one of the best ways to keep our communities safe, keep positive relationships between police and community, and prevent crime. So
Mr. City Manager.
anything else you want to add or
Mr. City-
ask questions?
Mr. City
they're all here.
Manager, I just wanted to add something. I think that neighborhood policing and the storefront go together, and I'm sure that the chief can share that too. And before we go to that to Chief Hamilton, I think the CERT program, we talked about it before. I think that's an excellent program where you train the volunteers to work, especially during an earthquake or some major disaster, where all of us are going to be on our own for 2-3 days, and the CERT communities or CERT. In the past, we used to have each neighborhood used to participate. What do we have, about 48 neighborhood councils or so forth, and the CERT program that could be very instrumental in helping us in a major disaster. But going back again to the neighborhood policing and storefront, I think Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think they go hand in hand, and maybe Chief Benitez can share a couple of ideas, and then Hamilton and the CERT program.
Okay, so do I have the floor now? Is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I hear what both of you are saying, and I think you are actually both speaking the same themes here. Mayor Pro Tem McDonald is talking about restoring patrol staffing that provided the first responder services that we are seeking to restore. And to his point, as the city gets bigger, our needs to staff our patrol division grows as well. With regards to neighborhood policing, that has been a flagship program that our department has run since even before I started here. I think you recall Chief Whitney was one of the first storefront officers back in 1992. When I came in 1993, that was already in place, but it was an institution with this department. And what we're seeking to do is to fill our vacancies and strengthen our patrol division, but we also want to bring that neighborhood policing element back out into service. And the second phase or third phase of that is actually expanding that community policing or neighborhood problem solving element that would include satellite storefronts in neighborhoods like South Windsor or La Colonia.
And Chief, I think the other item is the cultural training, diversity training with your police officers. We experienced some information in the past, that required us to look at our police department to be more diverse, to be more inclusive, and to be more culturally aware of the community. And I think you're working on that now, if that's correct.
Yes, we have a principled policing curriculum that we had our first session back in November. We actually invited some community members to participate in that, and that deals with a number of things related to being aware of race relations, being aware of implicit bias, institutional racism, those topics that are on the forefront of the discussion today. As COVID lifts, we plan on continuing that series with our staff, sworn civilian, and we also plan to include community members in those trainings as well.
And I think you had a Chief Whitney and our CEO over in the county, and the sheriff and the rest of the organizations had a good forum regarding the cultural training and diversity and racism and so forth, which I think was really, really important for the entire community and the entire county for that matter. So thank you for that. And so, Mr. City Manager, on the CERT program and other things that the fire department needs, I think are extremely important for all of us to understand. Chief Hamilton.
Hear me okay? I've been having issues with my audio all day.
We can
hear you now.
We
Yeah,
can't
we can hear you.
understand you, but we hear you.
I mean, I pretty much lost control, but that's okay. So
Mayor, to your point, absolutely. The CERT program is a really important tool for us to help our neighbours get prepared. But as the city manager said, I think there's more that we can do. And so part of it is looking at some of the technologies that we can harness, but also it's coming up with a wider sort of community risk reduction program and public education and outreach. And so that's something that we're working towards right now in terms of building a plan that we can present for things that we want to do in the future. But the CERT program has been very popular, hugely successful. So we're looking forward once we can get through COVID to reestablish those classes and get some more CERT graduates through that program.
Thank you.
and I think those are good comments. It's not a matter of if we have a huge event, it's when we're going to have that huge event. And whatever it is, when it gets here, we're going to have to recognize that mutual aid will probably be out the window because all the other mutual aid agencies that would be coming to help us are going to be busy spending time in their own local community, both on the police and fire side, taking care of their residents. So we really need to be prepared to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, and maybe spend up to a week or 2 weeks isolated from other services. So that's just a fact of life, and it's a sad fact of life, but we need to recognize that it's there, that it's rearing its head at any time, that we need to be prepared for it. Sadly, there was a news story yesterday, I believe it was in the city of El Monte, where a gentleman and his daughter walked out into a backyard to investigate an explosion, and it was a high voltage power line that had exploded and fallen down, and they both died trying to see what was going on. And those are sad realities that we need to be prepared for, and our community needs to be prepared for. And not only do our first responders need to be ready for it, we need to give the community the skills to recognize hazards like that and say, here's how you deal with this. And the way to deal with it is you don't deal with it. But, and I'm sad about the loss of life in that city, and it's tragic, but it's a matter of educating our community to be ready for it, because it's not a matter of when, or if rather, it's when, and we don't know. So, Mayor, anything else?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, City Manager, did it here in this community services and public safety talked about cleanliness and parks and so forth?
Oh, no, that'll be in the next.
In the next
committee.
one, okay. Thank
Yes, which you are
I'm trying to
be
get
part
ahead.
of. Yes, you guys are moving too
I'm-
fast.
I'm looking at Terrell there, so.
So, right. Also, we have our Cultural and Community Services Director and our Housing Director, and they all play a role in all of these categories. Of course, many things in the city overlap. So the other thing I want to make clear for the committee and the community is now that we have these priorities, we will put this into a public survey and see where the community ranks these various items. And then when we get back to the full council workshop is the time for the council to then truly prioritize. And I will be, obviously, we will have very clear recommendations from staff as well. But we're going to work with the council to juggle the various priorities and narrow it enough so that, again, it reflects what we can achieve in the next 5 years, because we can't really continue to have a long wish list or laundry list of things that we can't get to. But I also want to be clear, for the purposes of accountability, we will not come and say, we want $5 million for police officers. We would come and say, here's the service we want to restore and offer. Here's what it requires in terms of funding, and here's what the community will get as the outcome. And here's the timeline for when we can implement and deliver. And some of these things will be pricier than others, but it's ultimately up to the city council to pick and choose which priorities come first, or which priorities get, certain amounts of funding in year one versus year two. In the end, even with the saving grace of Measure E, there's only still, so much money we have. It's still limited. So we won't be able to do everything all at once. And that's that's where it really comes down to the entire council's role to help us narrow it down and actually prioritize them. So I want to just be clear, we're not just saying we want more X. We're saying, we want to deliver this kind of a program, and to do so, we need X. Here's what it would cost. Here's what the community gets, and here's the timeline and the schedule. So we will be very clear about that.
And Mr. Mayor,
And that will happen in the budget.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, another item, and I'm sure that I want to thank Chief Benitez working with Emilio regarding and code compliance, working with our homeless issue. And that's been a really, really important issue for all of us, whether it's Ormond, whether it's downtown, whether it's our business section. Though that partnership between the public safety, housing, and code compliance is extremely important. And I just want to commend you for that, Chief, for working with that. And in fact, I've had quite a few emails come over to me regarding that. I sent them to you, and you have the answers, which I think are really, really good. So I think that type of, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we need to combine those efforts, to.
Sure, and I would agree with that. And I think we need to have a holistic approach to this. Although we focus mostly on public safety, we obviously need to keep in mind that recreation and youth services is an important element of this approach, because those are our future police officers and our future firefighters that we're going to raise up in this community to serve this community and be good workers. And it goes hand in hand with the quality of life and providing services to our homeless community and getting them on the right track. So, Mr. Ramirez and Mr. Harrison, no disrespect to you two. We appreciate all the work you're doing. I know we focus on public safety, but I think that we also recognize the absolute important efforts that you put forth to make our community a better place to live, work, and recreate. So I appreciate all of your efforts.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and Ms. City Manager, I know you mentioned this, but the priorities are very important. You mentioned the 5-year window that we're looking at. The have sufficient resources to do X, Y, and Z, the metrics, timelines, and also how do we combine all that with our budget and Measure E,
Right.
which I think are really important that we look at that too.
Right. And we're excited about the process and look forward to it. So where we're in the process here again today, each committee is scoping the parameters through the committee's subject area lens. We go out we wrap that together, go out for a public survey, bring that data back to the city council special workshop dedicated to the entire council actually deciding what the priorities will be. And then we will take that and develop the budget. And the budget should truly reflect what the council's priorities are. And that's where we'll have the actual dollar amounts and the timeline. And then the council has to decide come budget time, how much for each bucket and how fast.
Also one, Mayor Pro Tem, one item that I'd like to share that I had in my notes here that I forgot to mention is that we're going to be looking at the public for a workshop. We're going to be looking at ideas. And I think we have 1,300 employees. How many employees do we have in the city?
Roughly.
About 1,300 employees. I think that we need to query all our employees because they're the workforce. Those are the people that help us out. The employees are, I would say, Mayor Pro Tem is a general and you have all these employees working for him, So I think that we need to also look at our employees and they have a lot of good ideas. They do the work every day, whether it's a firefighter, whether it's a refuse collector, whether it's a gardener or a custodian or even an attorney, believe it or not.
I don't believe that. But it's a good reminder that we should also send the survey directly to our employees. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, they're the ones that see the immediate stuff. Well, Mr. City Manager, you asked for input. You probably got more input than you were hoping for, but that's okay. I think it was a good discussion. I appreciate you bringing this to us. I'm looking forward to the future, and I know we got a little bit below the 30,000 foot level, but we tried to keep more general. So, thank you. Any closing comments or anything of that nature?
Thank you very much.
You need a motion?
No, I think this is just provide input, and we've given them tons of input.
Thank you.
Okay, that will take us to items for future agendas. Mayor, do you have any items for future agendas?
No, only that that we're progressing well. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay, I think we're on the right track.
Mhm.
I think we're heading the right direction. So, Mr. City Manager, I apologize. We didn't go the whole length of the meeting. We can sit and talk some more if you like, or my preference would be probably to say, let's adjourn till the next meeting and you can prepare for your subsequent meeting after this one. Does that meet with your approval, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then, thank you all for your participation and presentations, and this meeting will be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.